Hey, this is Sabrina, Monarch of Monarch Astrology and Magic of the Spheres podcast. And in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about the full moon partial eclipse on September 17th in Pisces. So let me show you the chart of what I'm looking at and what I find notable. We have this full moon in Pisces. The moon is close to Neptune and it's separating from a conjunction, but still in that 10-degree orb with Saturn in Pisces, but much closer to Neptune, as you can see. We are in Virgo season. And then this full moon, the moon here is at the midpoint of a trine between Pluto, who is retrograded back into the last degree of Capricorn, and Uranus in late Taurus. So we have this Pluto-Uranus trine in Earth signs, and then the moon in Pisces conjunct Neptune at the midpoint. I think that's significant. There's something of like a dream, right? The last degrees of Pisces, the last decan of Pisces is connected to, I'll stop the share here for a moment. It's connected to the 10 of Cups. So in the tarot, you have that scene of a happy couple, children running around and their dog running around, and they are underneath a rainbow and they're having this kind of sublime moment of happiness. So that last degree of Pisces has something to do with this spiritual pursuit of happiness. And it's an interesting one because happiness is ephemeral. I talked about this also. You'll want to go back to my new moon video in Virgo because a lot of the themes I'm talking about today I'm picking up on. But the state of happiness or the state of profound fulfillment of the heart is something that happens in flashes in connection to a life that otherwise has its ups and downs. And of course, if you structurally build your life in a positive direction, if you align your life with your spirit and your soul, you'll feel those moments of alignment more often. So I think it's interesting, this Pluto in Capricorn, trine Uranus and Taurus, there's something about wanting to, secure resources, secure safety, to feel like you have enough or that you're provided for. And then that's making that space for that sweet, 10 of Cups experience. But of course, like I always, like to go deep and open up the nuances of things. Our pursuit of these kind of peak experiences really bring up a lot of soul material, right? If you think about what it is that you privilege as the best experiences in your life and how able you are to receive them, like how open your palms are in terms of receiving what life has to give you versus where you're gripping, where you're trying to force, where you're trying to make things happen. And I think that this eclipse, my intuition, my read on it is that it's really a checkpoint emotionally or at a spiritual level of how we relate to that deeper pursuit of, is this life valuable? What conditionally makes life valuable? And how do I open and receive to what life is at this moment, even if my deepest desires are not here yet, or we are going through a disillusionment and revisioning process of what it is that we think is ultimately meaningful. So let's break this down more specifically. So this Virgo season, before I get into this, actually, please like this video, leave a comment to say hi or let me know what resonates with you at some point, and subscribe to my channel. So this Virgo season where we currently are, something I love about practicing astrology is that every solar season, there can really be a deepening. It's like I know these signs well, but they always have new layers to teach us. So this Virgo season, I learned something new about the quote mundane, right? In the Pisces archetype, which many of you will guess my signs here, and you accurately pick up something Piscean, that is my rising, my Mercury, Mars, and Venus. So in that Pisces archetype, we are drawn to fantasy, something distinctly other and beyond. Sorry, just checking something. Okay, we're drawn to fantasy, right, in Pisces, something distinctly other and beyond than what is. And this connection to the beyond is, instrumental for artists and creators. dreamers, entrepreneurs, like anyone who's creating and, bringing something into the reality from the beyond, this can actually be quite practical, Virgo. And there's a glamour to it, right? This Pisces archetype is of the mystic who has one foot in reality and one foot in the dream. So we do have a character in Pisces that is, off somewhere else and not all the way here. And there's also negative sides of fantasy as a force that disconnects us or disassociates us. This is evident in people who, I'm sorry, this is like a weird image, but I remembered seeing something in a sociology class. They did this, like in, I don't know what the word is, but they did a documentary on this man who was just in a relationship with like a life-size doll. He had like an inanimate girlfriend. And it's like he knows that she's not real, but he's chosen, this is his life partner, and that's what he's doing. So he's in this like full-time relationship with an inanimate object. And, in terms of the kind of Pluto and Aquarius dystopian things, we might be thinking of like AI girlfriends or something like that. So yeah, weird metaphor we're going here, but people could choose to be in an imaginary relationship. Fantasy is free. It's, the only limit is your imagination. And in most cases, no one can really stop you from living in a fantasy. So to the degree, there are some fantasies that reality will pop the bubble of. There's some fantasies that we are unconscious about, that we really believe until the bubble is popped. And you can just willfully choose, like, I choose to live in a dream, right? And there's something about that where if you're like a full-time artist or, you're creating like yourself as like an icon or you're creating a lot of glamour around yourself, like there are, it's kind of like a celebrity energy in some way too, to just full on like enchant your life with a glamour. And again, like things discernment with this, because there is a creative part of this creating the dream, Pisces, like weaving that dream into the reality. And there's places where it can be more delusional and not in like a fun way. Fantasy, which is a largely Pisces theme, can come back down to a thread from its polar opposite sign, Virgo, where the sun currently is. And we're going to be talking all things Virgo Pisces because this is where the full moon eclipse is happening and where, the themes that are surrounding this eclipse are orbiting. Fantasy can come back down to this Virgoan thread, basically, of that things aren't enough as they are. Something isn't good enough, something is lacking, something needs to be better, right? Like I picture that maybe I was had dissociative patterns as a kid, but I wouldn't have if there was like a communal campfire every night and I lived in some kind of magical village where we were all doing like rituals and dancing by a fire together or like, having rites of passage or living this like mystical tribal life. I think that may have held my attention a little bit more, right? So that's just my approximation of it. But it's like, for whatever your particular dream is, compared to just like, well, what's there? What's so lacking about the reality that you would rather go somewhere else, that you would rather travel to another realm, right? If reality isn't stimulating, expansive, interesting, entertaining, or like free enough, why not go somewhere else? And of course, even in the best of realities, humans still take breaks from reality in the form of sleep and dream. And you can philosophically argue which is the real dream, if your sleeping dreams are more real and this waking life is the dream. Philosophers asked that a long time ago. Other things that are less real are like games, entertainments, and these things can be immensely fulfilling and like part of our lives, right? And they often weave back into the main reality frame. These ideas are inspired, by the way, by Robert Bellah, who wrote about religion and human evolution. And to begin his argument, he talks about what ordinary life is versus what are these deviations, these breaks from normal life. And so when we go into these other pockets of reality, whether it's a dream that we have, and the deeper you get into the mysticism of dreams, dreams can be socially conditioned. And so you might have dreams that are limited to what you've been told by culture is possible in dreaming. But if we live in a culture, you have enough friends, you have enough of a open mind to it to see dreams as a space of oracle and divination and communication with the beyond, you might have more mystical dreams. And so if you are having dreams that are prophetic or telling the future, or you're getting visions or something like that, these dreams might change your life, right? Or, if sports are a big part of your life, and so you enter into the alternate reality of the sport game, right? And that is a woven part of your life because of your sport community and, however else. It's like these deviations, these entertainments, these other worlds are necessarily like they weave back and they're important. For me, like I love having visions, and visions to me are quite real, but they're also beyond, and then they weave into my life. And if you're a person that has vision or has intuition, Pisces, you still have to learn discernment, Virgo. So there's that thread there, right? So Virgo, Pisces, another way that I'm kind of talking around this is that you kind of have to discern what your inspirations, your visions, are they truly inspired, or do they have more of a thread of delusional fantasy to them that aren't serving you, that don't serve life, that are just distractions or addictions and whatnot. So then what I learned this Virgo season about the mundane, so the mundane is in what is happening at the most simple level in normal, ordinary life, is that I have a lot of places that I'm hardwired to, at this point, reject that mundane world, to need it to be something more first. Like an endless hunger to sensationalize, to make bigger, to sweeten, to make better, to make less painful or uncomfortable, just like make the reality better, please. Right? And this seems to fit the agenda of the dream, make reality more beautiful. But what if being with what is, like just being grounded in the present moment, is itself a portal into new aspects of the living, breathing, real dream, making itself known, right? Like, what if there's actually something about the quote mundane that is being overlooked? What if what appears boring or low sensation or not enough actually is full of life? It's like thrumming with life. And only if you pay attention and tune in and listen does it start to grow and expand. It's possible that this eclipse season will illuminate the current glitches, chasms, or bridges between our proneness to fantasy, negative and positive fantasies, hopes and fears, dreams alike, and then what is actually happening at its most neutral baseline. So I hope this distinction is clear, that there's a difference between being rooted, like actually being down and rooted in the reality, present with what is, and able to feel the subtle visions and inspirations that want to incarnate and come into life through the waking dream of the reality, versus hovering away, like not being inside of life, hovering at a distance from it, and then wanting some kind of big magical dream that if you think you get that, then you can land and be here. It's like a conditional approach to life of like, if life meets my fantasy preferences, then I will pay attention to it. But otherwise, I can't be bothered with this boring, mundane, not good enough life. So let me go somewhere else mentally, right? That's the dissociation pattern of Pisces that I'm naming. And I think that if you pop that bubble, there's quite a lot of disillusionment inside of that, because there's this inherent kind of like cluster of beliefs and nervous system patterns and all of that that are basically saying that this life, this experience, the sensations in my body, like, aren't good enough. Get me somewhere else. I want something else for this to all be worth it. And the disappointment, right? The coming down to earth of, what if this is all that there is for now? You never know how the story is going to develop. But if you just land where you are now and stop that pattern of disassociating, what about this life is causing that level of avoidance, right? It might be boredom. It might be like unprocessed density and pain, right? Like if you notice, like, one of Virgo season's things is about being busy, right? It can be genuine to be busy, but sometimes being busy is a way to avoid just sitting with the basic discomfort of ourselves, right? Like if you have some kind of psychological process emerging or some grief process, and you're like, how about not? How about I compartmentalize that and go keep myself busy so that I don't have to look at these things or feel them or sit with them? That layer of reality, like just sitting with what is, might be so cringe, might be so excruciating, but what if it is the portal to the heaven that we think we're getting to when we dissociate and go somewhere else in the first place? That's what I'm talking about. So the moon separating from Saturn and applying to Neptune suggests that we may be coming from some disillusionments and disappointments at some level recently. Wherever it is that we face a boundary of no to some dream that we've had. Sometimes it's that the dream doesn't appear to be happening. It's not happening on the timeline that we'd like. Or sometimes our attachment to the dream makes it difficult, if not impossible, to receive it. Whatever it is, we've been told no, or we lost the energy to cling to a type of faith that requires force and clinging, right? Not like a gentle, relaxed, open palm faith, but like I am forcing myself to believe and keep the fire alive at all times. And like, what is going on inside of that compensation of intense belief in something? Like, what grief, what disappointment, what feelings, what overwhelm is being circumvented by that type of force? But then the moon applying to Neptune suggests a further dissolving or spiritualization of all of this. It reminds me of the type of surrender where a person is not trying to forcefully direct their own life anymore from the place of their ego. Like, this is what I want, and I'm going to use my spiritual powers and my manifestation techniques to make things happen in my life, or I'm going to play the material game, like get my foot on all the relevant footholds and just make the thing happen, like forcing a dream into being. When a person stops doing that and surrenders to like a God's plan type of spirituality of, what does the universe want to co-create with me? And then the interesting riddle or paradox to that, where when people do that actual kind of surrender, they will receive things from life that are better than what they imagined on their own at an egoic level. And it's just really interesting how it's like, when we like surrender to how life wants to move through us, when we enter into a more co-creative place with the universe, how it actually can just be better in the end. But there's so much of our personality that really fights that, because it's attached to its idea of the timeline, what it wants, and all of that. So if we bring this back to the Virgo polarity, it opens up the possibility of viewing exactly where we are in our lives right now, keeping in mind that we're still being called to participate and to, participate in the unfolding of our lives. That maybe we can view it, what exactly our life is right now, as good enough. That rather than longing for some different season of life, we might receive this current moment as what we are currently being given. It's a spiritual perspective, of course, to reflect on our current experiences as provision. So sit with me in that for a moment. It's the concept of a really radical reapproach to what if everything that you have in your life right now was for you. You know, we don't think things are for us because we have struggles or we have lack. And so we feel like something's missing or something is wrong. And where there can be that radical shift in consciousness of maybe things not working out the way I think they want is actually for me. Maybe the rejection is for me. Maybe the season of solitude instead of being in partnership is for me. Maybe this season of being more low energy and needing to rest is for me, right? Whatever it is. And I think that this becomes a little bit contentious inside of that Pluto-Uranus trine with Uranus in Taurus and Pluto in Capricorn, because Uranus in Taurus relates to trauma around not having, right, of deprivation. And then, you know, you put the two of them together and there's like this really strong, deeper pulse for liberation and freedom in relationship to the concrete and material world. So this strong driving force to secure resources or provision and to get to higher ground, so to speak, in the absence of that. Like, it could be the case, you know, when your life is happening below your standards, such as you are interacting with like abusive or, you know, quote, toxic people, or you're not making, you're not bringing in enough resources to actually sustain yourself and you're like at a deficit resource wise, you might look around at your reality and be like, no, this literally isn't enough. This isn't okay. Like, I need to get to a higher ground for my survival, for my well-being. So it's not necessarily about looking at our lives as though we don't have to do anything or nothing has to change, but just coming into a deeper state of surrender of like, maybe this curriculum or maybe this experience is actually for me at a deeper level, as opposed to something that is just fundamentally wrong or bad. But there can still, you know, be that space to realize that you want to change your life in a deeper way, or you might also really calm down and receive inside of a situation where you actually have enough. And it's only your inability to receive what you already have that's keeping you on a hamster wheel of chasing more. Like, if the reality of your bank account or the reality of your relational life, the reality of some level of beauty and resource in your life is enough for you to like sit and receive and be with and open and deepen into what you already have. So that's going to be really situationally dependent. And you have to be honest with yourself in terms of, is it true that something about the way your life is playing out is really below your standard and you are trying to secure higher ground? Or are you ready to relax and receive exactly the harvest of this season of your life right now? But yes, that Pluto Uranus trine, I mean, there's something psychologically imperative. There's a deep concern there about having enough value, love, money, body power, desired physical experiences, safety, security, and so on. Maybe even a little bit obsessed with the prospect of it. And then you have the moon in Pisces conjunct Neptune in the middle of it. So there's something about really opening to that spiritual perception of things inside of being material creatures, inside of being organisms who need energy to survive, like that dance that we are doing here. I want to name too that sometimes people dream to survive. In cases of an abusive early life or a restricted or enslaved life, for example, dreaming is a place to keep the spirit alive inside of desolate circumstances. So sometimes there, you know, the dream is where life is technicolor and the real life is drab or severely missing something. And so the spirit goes to the dream to keep the spirit alive. But a question for this eclipse then with the Moon-Neptune conjunction in Pisces at the midpoint of the Pluto-Uranus trine, so something about securing havingness, is it time to come down to earth? Maybe reality isn't as fulfilling as a part of us hoped it would be. Watch my last video because I talked a lot about this with the new moon in Virgo. But maybe life hasn't yielded the crop that we want yet. The dream career or the public recognition, the dream partner, or that compelling sense of purpose that burns from the inside. Whatever it is that we still hunger for, that we think will make this life ultimately meaningful, right? The question is, does that perceived sense of absence, that focus on its absence, disassociate us from the subtle unfolding available to us if we put our feet on the ground? If we decide this conditional demand I had on my life for it to be worthwhile, it's not here. I don't know if it's going to be here. I don't know when it's going to be here. If I can just accept what is here, like what would it mean to drop in instead of waiting, hovering in protest because of that absence? What if we started to dream down rather than up and out? Down into the subtle sensations in our bodies, down into a kind of sobriety, down into what's pulsing or arising in a given moment. If we want to add another layer to all of that, the Virgo Pisces axis holds the material and spiritual realms and the way these weave together. It also holds the historic splitting between these two, where the flesh became bad and sinful, and where there was an up and out aspiration toward heaven and purity, and a rejection of the subterranean, the body, its deep psyche. So however much you took that conditioning in through actual religion or just the culture, it leads there to be something gritty for a lot of people about going down and in. It's dirty, it's messy, right? Maybe it's disgusting. Whatever it is, it's like, it's not always so pure feeling. It's the dirt of the earth. It's the muck of the process. And so for me, learning how to be with what is has actually been less about mental activity, not about assessing my circumstances mentally from a more neutral perspective, though that can be part of it. What's trained the skill the most of being with what is actually embodiment and learning how to be with physical sensations, because the body, the physical, these are the more dense parts of this reality. You can change your mind, you can have a different idea every minute. And of course, mental transformations can be more powerful than that. But the body is a lot slower and holds more density. So I've noticed, like, when you first begin to ask people, maybe who haven't like developed an embodiment practice, how their body feels, a lot of people will reach for emotions, like they're sad or they're angry, or stories, more than being able to identify particular sensations in their body, just concrete physical sensations. Feeling sensations is a practice, right? And we have to think about like what's encouraged us to numb that. If we have built a lot of habits of just like suppressing body sensations to perform or get stuff done, or just not dwell or like think about that or feel that, because that would open a whole can of worms, or if there's been a fear of like every body sensation that's painful means I have to go to the doctor and something's scary, then there might be a numbing that comes from that too. So, like a lot of the contemporary culture is very like neck up, right? Some cultures have more of the like the body and like sensuality and dance and all of that. But there can be quite a disconnection actually from descent and being down and in the body. So for an eclipse season curveball, everyone, I made a point this month to talk about feminine embodiment, meaning pussy, feminine spirituality, because deepening my own relationship with my body has definitely not just been from the head up. It's full down deepening descent and does involve pussy explicitly. An important teacher of mine on this path is opening up her work in a new way and trying to make it more accessible to reach new people. She's teaching women how to connect more thoroughly with their bodies in her program called the Pussy Map, how to connect with the internal navigation system in their own bodies through a deepened relationship with pussy in ways that it's actually, I've experienced it as like a mystery school. She has codes about feminine embodiment that I really never heard people talking about. It's not just about like pleasure or something syrupy. It's like about like really being in relationship to that power of creativity and like creating life that moves through a feminine body. She has a few free classes this month, and you can learn more about it and her work through, here, I'll just share my screen for a moment. Follow the link in the notes to her website. And she has a free class. This one just happened, but there's a few more coming up. Whereas there's so much on this site now. Maybe, yeah, what happens when you click on this link? Okay, I'll give you the correct link to the Pussy Map. But there, you can sign up for the free classes and just make sure that you put the code Sabrina as the referral code, because I am doing an affiliate thing with her. So what I have learned from Pussy in my own practice the last 4 years, really with Perry, I was studying different like Tantra teachers and embodiment things since 2016. But I want to connect why I'm talking about this to the Virgo Pisces astrology in this eclipse, because it actually is really relevant. Essentially, you know, the way that we relate to Pussy, we can try to use her, extract from her, make her something else. But these are not real openings. Like the opening just is, and the opening can be served. I don't think a lot of women in the world are encouraged to slow down with her and be able to nourish and follow the thread of her truthfully. Pussy is a portal to truth in the body that women are routinely taught to override, to not feel, or to contort it for someone else, contort it for our own egoic idea of where we should be in a current moment. And so we ignore the subtle, quiet layers of what's happening and reach for reality being something else. So I'm really grateful for Perry's teachings. And she has this practice called Sex Bomb, which her Pussy Map is an introduction to also, which is a meditation practice that involves self-pussy stroking and learning energetic lessons through the body. It's not just about like pleasure or having a certain particular experience. It's actually about learning how to be with what is and learning how to be with different frequencies and energies and to expand the nervous system inside of that. It's really powerful and actually really life-changing. And that's why I wanted to talk about it. For one, to share it, but also to bridge the gap, because I'm not like a sex educator per se. I'm an astrologer, but deepening into embodiment has been crucial in my life. So it's something that I want to be able to talk about freely in relationship to the astrology. And what astrology is, right, is having this map of our life's assignment. It's like getting a lot of sight. And sometimes that sight can be, you know, when you resonate with a forecast, you really feel it. It touches you. But I think in astrology practice, in terms of being with that sight and being with those openings, it's about deepening into the yes, the call of living your life And when it comes to living our life, we have to lean into a lot of sensations, maybe fears, maybe our edges, places we feel like we just can't. And so developing strength in the nervous system, opening into our actual bodies, like allows the story of our life to unfold even more. So that's what I've found as someone, who's been following astrology and having all the visions and whatnot, is that it's led me deeper and deeper into my life. And that learning about embodiment has only supported me in like living out that promise of my natal chart and of all these big visions that I have for myself in my life that need my vessel's participation for these things to actually flow through me. So I'm really grateful for Perry's teachings and wanted to share these free classes and her new program with you, because I think they're really impactful teachings. And for anyone in my audience, any women that want to connect with their bodies more deeply, and learn like probably a type of practice that you've never done before. It's not just like a self-touch pleasure practice. It's so much more than that. I wanted to share that. But in the last few years, I found that more than meditating to empty my mind, sitting in lotus position or what have you, I meditate with sensation and learn how to be present with what is in my body. This accomplishes the same thing actually of emptying the mind, because it trains an ability to open the soma and the oracle and the psyche of the body. When I talk about feminine spirituality or being a plutonic practitioner, I am all about the down and in forms of spirituality, that are about meeting and living this life, that the spiritual path is this life. Whether it's about the soul landing into the body and this incarnation, which is evolutionary astrology, all of what I'm about, or literally landing more into the body with embodiment practices, that's a way to practice that ethos that I come from spiritually. So to sum up, what I'm inviting you to pay attention to for this eclipse is an embodied or spiritual transformation around how we relate to the, quote, mundane layers of life. What is here at the quietest, subtle layer before we try to make it something better or fix it or optimize it, etc., right? How clearly even can we see the mundane or neutrally see what is, because we have all sorts of layers of judgment and fantasy and ideals even that cloud our sober perception of what is. So how do we, one, just tune into those quiet layers, peel back those projections? Right? How perhaps we get twisted up at a bunch of the top layers of trying to make things happen or make life something, versus dropping down and in and becoming a listener, a tender, a gardener. Allowing life to be what it is not the same as doing nothing. It's about our alignment with reality and our ability to weave genuine inspiration into the waking, living dream that we're a part of. It's about hearing inspiration versus applying force. So on a personal note, as an example, picking up from what I was talking about in the last video too, about the new moon in Virgo, having the dream partner is still a place I find myself hinging the value of my life. I followed it down to this place, if I really sit in the grief of it, it's like feeling like it's not even worth it to live if I don't have this. So that very attitude, I think, corrupts me, right? Because it's a gripped palm. It's not open. And there's that sense of like imprinting that big fantasy and that sense of redemption onto something that possibly fits it. Like the baby duckling who sees, are you my mother? Are you my mother? It's like that with the dream. Is this the thing that makes my life worth it? Are you the portal to my dream coming true? Like, it's too much in some sense. And this confronted me with a profound spiritual necessity for a reorientation to my life, which is unfolding for me now. Like, instead of trying to patch up this conditional regard for life with a person, what if I heal that disconnection at the root by coming into a place of relational intimacy with exactly what is happening in my life as enough. Like just being intimate with what is, coming into deeper presence with myself and with the all. I've had so many machinations around my faith or my manifestations of romance and partnership. At this point, I'm leaning into a full surrender, and I'm not trying to hunt or strategize how to get it, how to date for it, all of that. I know that this type of love is a desire that's coded deeply into me and is for me. And I'm not in ultimate control of how life bestows fortune onto me. So what I can do here at this point is let my life and my relationship with God be enough. How I can really love and receive this exact season of my life without needing it to be anything else, anything more. Just receiving every moment as deeply as I can. When the time arises for the next true steps, I will know and feel it, but it doesn't have to be my project. So, of course, it's Virgo season, and I'm in this very virginal, monogamous relationship with God kind of phase of my life, which is funny. But, you know, I know inside of this, like that desire, it's like, what can I do? I can work on myself. I can like study the ways to attract the man, or, you know, do all these kind of things, when at the end of the day, it's all this kind of distraction from a deeper location of just sitting with what my life is. That is not always relevant for everyone at every time, you know, like it's like you could be actually really actively training toward an experience. You could be going to college or taking some kind of program to get to a place where you can have a particular career. You're not just like sitting and being like, I'll just wait for the career to happen. So it is a discernment thing of the dream that you have. Are you meant to go for it? Are you being called into the participation of it? And what does that participation even look like? And I think that might be the deeper unfolding around this eclipse. I know that there's a difference with like business, for example, like going out and kind of making things happen in the world. You can kind of hunt for that. You can kind of make it happen. You can apply effort and eventually receive a harvest. Relationship and love, I think, is different in that it's literally about relationship. So what I'm doing to align with relationship is coming into deeper relationship with myself and with life first. And not in this like, I'm doing this to manifest, but in like this is actually the next step spiritually for me to participate with my life in a meaningful way, if that comes across or is conveyed. I believe this season, this eclipse season, our pursuit of living a meaningful life can go so much deeper than, quote, making it happen, bringing it about by force. Whatever glamour that we've put into the box of a perfect life, it's time to reclaim the projection, right? Life will, I think this eclipse season kind of play with that projection with this moon, Neptune, full moon, because it either comes in the form of manifesting the thing and realizing that it doesn't magically solve all your problems, or a hungry ghost part of you that wanted it in the first place. Or you could still be waiting for it and realizing that you're living your life in relationship to an absence. Or we can do the deeper kind of psycho-spiritual work of reclaiming the projection of that thing that we idealize so much, that type of fortune, that thing that we think is like the magical, redemptive quality of life, and stop making it so particular, so narrow, and open to what is that dream, what is that deep yearning actually trying to point us back to in our relationship with life. Heaven can be a place on earth too, with the Virgo Pisces axis. So let me know what you received from this. We went a mystical path with it, just like we did last time with the new moon in Virgo, which I suggest you watch also, even though that's past, because I really went in on that video on the relationship of where we try to, like, where it's really coming from internally at a developmental perspective, that we project this kind of deep ultimate redemption and this deep spiritual value onto the magical other, the quote magical other, or perfect and ideal circumstances. Like, what is that hunger about, and what's a different way to relate to it? And all of this, I think, fits back with what's really happening with like evolutionary astrology, this form of astrology that I work with. It is about understanding your soul and what this incarnation is really about at a soul level. So really sitting with, there is a part of you that is more eternal, that, has lived before, will live again, and that this incarnation matters, that it is the place where you are learning particular lessons, where you are deepening in your curriculum as a soul, where you were erotically drawn to exist and be here and to partake in this life. And I think that really healing any kind of disconnection that we have between our soul and our persona or our personality, it's like choosing to actually land here and realizing that, yeah, there's a lot of resistance. Like the soul and the personality don't always see eye to eye. There's a transformation that's happening through their relationship. So this is what I'm teaching coming up. I have my evolutionary astrology intensive, which is a way where I teach you how to be astrologically fluent, how to receive the transmissions of all the signs, planets, aspects, the technical things, how to put it together, but to receive that in a way where you connect it to your own life and your own inner world, so that you're not just learning in like a memorization based way, but that you actually feel your relationship to the archetypes and start to see them at play in your life ever more vividly. Like it's kind of psychedelic, people will tell me. And that's how I experience this too, where it's like you start to see the animistic layer, the magical layer of astrology. This intensive is something I've been teaching since 2018. It's a beloved program. I'm leaving the course page in the notes so that you can read more about it, the logistics, and also read student testimonials. We began October 8th, and applications are open. Tuition assistance applications are also still open for those that need some extra support. Let me show you the course page. So this you can find in the notes. And what else do I want to tell you about it right now? It is an all levels course. So it's for, if you already have like bits and pieces, or you're already like a full-on practitioner, the course is really designed to deepen you where you are. I'm going to be teaching a free class on Pluto September 16th, so just in a few days here. And I'm going to be offering a transmission on this archetype and working with Demeter and Hades for it this time, because Pluto is so much about what we desire the most, like what is the most precious to us in this life, like what it is that made us want to live in the first place and incarnate and be here. And I think Demeter as an archetype really works with similar themes of attachment, like being in these beautiful seasons of life, these summers that we never want to end, and just contending with this life that we're living here is full of fluctuating material circumstances. Things come into form and things leave form. And that's really hard to deal with at a spiritual level. That forms a lot of our psychological coping mechanisms and defenses, is because it's just really vulnerable to be an organism. It's really vulnerable to be alive. It's vulnerable to have these deep, sensitive feelings and to deal with things ending and whatnot. So how do we understand these things spiritually so that we can lean into living our lives with a lot of care and dignity and fullness? Evolutionary astrology came to me at a time where it really helped me like live into my life more. I was in a state of crisis, like really deep crisis, and evolutionary astrology helped me orient and understand myself and understand my life in a way that was very productive and conducive to like descending into my life more and actually discovering my gifts and letting my gifts work for me in my life. And it continues to be a spiritual guide, just in terms of navigating the various initiations of this life. So I can't stress enough how beyond it being a system of astrology that can help you understand yourself in a way that is enlivening and healing and adds a lot of like depth and vividness to your life. Beyond it just being a way to understand yourself, it's a series of attunements that might deepen you in your connection to cosmos, in your connection to these various archetypal forces that comprise our lives and our relationships. It's kind of beyond really what this class offers. I think I'm all over the place right now in describing it. So, forgive me for that, and check out the course page to get the download of exactly, the structure of the course. We meet for 5 months. And it's a cohort-based learning. So there's a community, and it's one of my students described it as like a very warm, engaging environment where it feels like you're just having a fireside chat with an adept group of astrologers, basically. I really, really love these communities that form in this class. I think it's a super powerful class experience. I'm really excited to be offering it again. So I want to encourage you to check out that course page, sign up for the free class on Pluto called Tender Desire Temporary Life that's happening September 16th, and check out the Pussy Map free classes and the program by Perry Chase, and use Sabrina as your referral code if you go check that out. Let me know in the comments what you thought about all of this, how it resonated with you, and I will see you again very soon. Thanks for being on my, coming to my channel, watching my videos. I love sharing this with you and having you here. It means a lot to me. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you again soon.